Good morning to all the participants who have gathered here for today's webinar on understanding the learning disabilities in children, prospects and future by Mrs. Elizabeth Suresh ma'am. I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants to this gathering and also welcome the chief guest. Let us start this event with a formal note of welcome address. For this, I invite Ms. Pavitra, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology, to welcome the gathering. Please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, sir. Good morning. It is my pleasure to give the welcome address for such a wonderful event. This webinar, Understanding Learning Disabilities in Children, Prospects in Future, is jointly organized by the Department of Psychology and Department of Microbiology, Ratnam College of Arts and Science. To provide us with our insight, we have Mrs. Elizabeth Suresh with us today. Mrs. Elizabeth Suresh has completed her counseling training programs from Christian Counseling Center, Vellore, and Institute of Social Sciences and Research, Vellore. She has been practicing as a counselor since 1994. Ms. Elizabeth Suresh got trained at Madras Dyslexia Association, Chennai, and started Rashmika Center for Learning and Counseling in June 1997, along with her husband Suresh Abraham, who is also a trained special educator from MDA. Since then, the center has been catering to the needs of children with specific learning disabilities. She's also been awarded Pro- Professional Excellence Award for the year 2008 from Rotary Spectrum, Coimbatore. She's the Women Study Center of Avnashalingam University awarded her a certificate of recognition for her outstanding services in mainstreaming children with specific learning disabilities in 2016. She is also the recipient of Kovai Wonder Woman 2018 icon. Currently, she holds the post of Principal, Rashmika and Raksha Educational Trust. She is also the Chief Resource Person for teaching, training programs and resource centers. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank
The stage
you.
is yours.
Thank you very much for your warm welcome. And I take this opportunity to thank the prestigious institution, the principal, the head of the Department of Psychology and the head of the Department of Microbiology. And I also express my appreciation and gratitude to the coordinators, Miss Saumya and Ms. Grishma, and also Pavitra for giving me such a wonderful boosting this morning. And thank you very much for this opportunity. I welcome all the participants who are here. I just would like to share with you what we have been doing for the last 24 years and our understanding with the theoretical background of what we have been doing, and also an understanding, sharing my experiences and understanding with you all so that you will be able to know what is happening on this side of life, where children are struggling to learn. For many of us, it is an easy way. So I just would like to introduce a little bit about this, and also my views on what is going to happen to these children, and also how our education system is going to support these children with a new national education policy. So I just would like to share these things, and thank you so much. Let's start with the topic.
Excuse me, ma'am. Participants, and information to you. Those who could not join or who are facing any technical difficulties in staying connected, we will share the live streaming link on the chat box. You can view the presentation from YouTube. Please take up the link from the chat session and you can view the session as a live stream. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
So, am I audible and visible? Is my screen visible? Participants,
Yes,
is my
ma'am.
screen visible?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Am I audible enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's begin with the topic. It is understanding learning disability and the prospects and future. It's a very, very challenging question. What's going to happen to these children? How is our educational policy going to support these children? Are all big challenging questions. So I'll come to that later, but let us see how we can understand these children. All of us are different. And life is very beautiful because of the difference. We look different, we dress differently, we act differently. The way we carry ourselves is different. The way we learn, the way we reproduce, everything is different. And that is what makes life beautiful. So these differences, some of these differences are very pleasing, very pleasant, very positive. But some differences are not very pleasant. They are a little painful. They are a little stressful. They are a little difficult. So we are now going to talk about those differences. I don't know whether we have to use the word disabilities very often. I prefer to use the word learning differences because they learn differently. And the problem is that we don't understand what is the manner in which these children need to be taught. So if we have to understand the manner in which these children are to be taught, we need to understand why they are different. So here I would like to share with you the differences in these children who are categorized as learning different children or learning disabled children. There is an ability in their disability. That is, we need to find out. That is the challenge for all of us, for we psychologists, for we special educators, we people who are supporting us with your research. It is our need to find out what is the ability which is lying in this hidden disability. We cannot find out by looking at them that they have a difficulty, but only in the performance we find this difficulty. So, we know that they show difficulty. Some children in the classroom, and as per the research, 10% of every campus have these differences or experience these difficulties. And the difficulties are in learning language, processing language. That means when you see something written, your ability to read it, the ability to understand what is being read to them or what they read, comprehend it, and process it within themselves. What they hear and what they see, that is visual and auditory. Reading is difficult for some of these children. Writing is difficult. Spelling is difficult for them. Understanding or comprehension is difficult for them. And for some children, arithmetical calculation is different. So we know that these children experience differences in these areas. But in spite of this is how we all understand. So if we ask somebody what is learning difference or learning disability, immediately we come with the conclusion that they have difficulty in reading, writing, spelling. Okay, dyscalculia, difficulty with numbers. But there is something more than that. That is only the surface. We are not able to understand these children, or many children go unrecognized or unidentified because we are not aware of the in-depth issues which these children are facing. I have asked few things here. Some are not able to perceive visually. They are not blind. They don't have a visual impairment. But what they see, they are not able to process. What they see, they are not able to perceive in the right manner. See, know what it is, identify what it is, understand what it is. They're not able to do that. Let it be letters, let it be numbers, they're not able to perceive it, but they are not blind. Some of them, they are not able to process whatever we tell them. The auditory input is there, but they are not able to process what they hear. They are not able to follow what the teacher is explaining in the class. But they are not deaf. So if they are either suffering from visual impairment or hearing impairment, it is very easy for us to understand. But these things are all which we often not able to identify in the children. And for some children, the usual way which we teach them in the regular class is not okay for them. They are unable to learn, but they are not mentally retarded. They are not intellectually challenged children. If that is the case, then who are these children? Who are they? So I can say that this learning disability, it affects the ability. It's the ability to understand a language, acquire a language, listen and understand the language, speak what we want to speak in the right manner, using the right words at the right time, the right kind of vocabulary. They're not able to read the way that we expect. Read with understanding and mechanical reading. Both they have difficulty. Or some of them have mechanical reading, but they don't understand what they are reading. Writing. Some children suffer from difficulty in writing. The process of writing, the handwriting. Then putting the thoughts from the brain to the paper is difficult for them. They are not able to reason out things. And they also have difficulty with numerical skills. So this is that group of children. So that is why we see many of them not able to perceive what they see, not able to understand what they hear, and not able to follow the regular way of teaching. So they need to be taught differently. Differences in learning should be addressed with a different strategy or different methods. So that is very important. Now, the first question which usually comes to us is, what are the causes of this difficulty? Why does it happen? Actually, no one knows the exact cause for learning disability. We have so many assumptions, or we have so many possibilities which are being discussed. I repeated, these are only possibilities or assumptions. And this is how we try to pacify ourselves. So it could be this, it could be that. But whatever is the reason, the need of the hour is to address the issue. We don't have much time to waste finding out the reason for it. Of course, research is going to help us so that we will be able to address this issue right early. Early intervention will become very meaningful if the research is going to give as enough support to these possibilities. So some of us are of the opinion that the neurons in the brain are misplaced, or some say that there is an abnormal arrangement of the neurons. Some are of the opinion that any kind of damage which happens to the centers of speech and language in the frontal lobe as well as in the temporal lobe, these are the reasons for the difficulty. So that is why this picture comes as that the damage to the left hemisphere can cause language difficulties. You see the picture. I'll explain this in detail later. So there's a non-impaired reader and an impaired reader. So there is this little difference with the picture. So it can be a cerebral dysfunction. It can be a neurodevelopmental dysfunction. And some of us are of some research shows that the EEG, which they take when the language tasks are going on, shows that there is a less electrical activity in the brain. So that is what is happening. And it is also says that some of the reasons for these kind of differences could be due to the effect of alcohol, smoking, or low level of lead intake, exposure to nitroso compounds, which usually we find in the cosmetics or the exhaust pipe or the cigarette smoke. It says that all these things are responsible and it affects the growing baby within the womb. And that can cause learning disabilities. These are all the possibilities people are saying. Nutritional influences also is considered as one of the possibility. Birth trauma at the time of delivery, what the child goes through, which becomes stressful for the brain of the child, and brain injuries. These are some of the possibilities according to the people that could answer the why of learning differences. We have yet to get proper research material on this to say that this is it. To finalize and conclude, we have to get proper research material on these. So if these are some of the causes, then let us look into the word, which is very, very commonly used now in every education field, in every school, right from the play school to the higher education level. We are so familiar with this word, learning difference, learning disability. But I think that that is an umbrella word. And it has got so many things which we have to discuss. Because many a times we use the word learning difference or learning disability and dyslexia as synonymous words. But I don't think it is right. Learning difference is a huge umbrella. So under that comes a lot of issues which are identified and not identified. Those who are identified many a times become a victim of pain, stress, and lack of proper remedial support. Those who go unidentified experiences stress and they develop their own coping up mechanisms. So life is very, very challenging for these children. So we have, under this umbrella of learning difference, we have number of issues to consider. So I'm going to deal with those things. And I just would like you to know certain features, certain facts, features of learning disability or learning difference. First of all, it is something which a person going to experience throughout their life, with different magnitude, with different stress level, and with different challenges. It affects not only a person's life or academics, it affects so many other areas. Learning is difficult. When they go for work, there also they experience difficulty. You will understand why I'm saying that as we continue with the discussion. It affects their social standing. It affects their emotional functioning. Because there is always anxiety. There is always the fear of, will I be accepted? Will I be recognized? Will I be given an unconditional acceptance in spite of my difficulties? So there is always stress. There are always anxiety with these children. To top it all, many of us label these children as stupid, slow learners, lazy, moron, careless, wantedly doing all these things. I have heard many parents telling me that ma'am, they can do it, but wantedly they are not doing it. So why should a child not learn when he is able to learn? unless and until there is some other emotional need for it. So these children are labeled like this. These are some of the things which all of us need to understand. It is going to remain throughout because it is a condition. It is not a disease. It is a condition, so there is no cure for it. And what we do is we help the children to develop coping up strategies with effective remedial support. So this remedial support is what is very, very important, because we are teaching them how to handle their life. We are teaching them how to learn. And these children have average or above average intelligence. Because when we get an intelligence report, sometimes it comes in 70s, 80s, that is how it is. If I get an intelligent report like that, I just keep it aside. I look more at the difficulties the child faces. For example, a child who is not able to understand language, a child who is not able to process what I'm hearing. If such a child is undergoing an intelligence test, what happens is that he is not able to do many of the questions or the activities in the test material because he does not understand the language. But the end result shows that his performance is below the expected level. So he comes with an IQ report of low intelligence. I just keep it aside. If he is a child, a slow learner, so usually we use this term for dyslexic children or children with learning differences or children with specific learning differences. Slow learners have their IQ less. And if you look at the chart of their performance, if you take a graph of the performance of a slow learner, it will be always at the lower level. But if you look at the graph of an LD child, it will have its curves with ups and downs. The slow learner's graph will be flat, but an LD child's graph of performance will have ups and downs. So we cannot use the word slow learner to an SLD child, specific learning different child, because they are slow in getting things, not because they are slow learners, but because of the difficulty they are facing. So that is one misunderstanding, misrepresentation we give to these children. In fact, all these children are of average intelligence or above average. Certain facts for us to remember as people, as students of psychology, as students of microbiology, please keep these facts to remember. An LD child has average or above average intelligence. If a student comes to me with an IQ report of low intelligence, after giving the remedial program, I'll send the child again for a re-IQ test after 6 to 10 months, and I can definitely find out that that is not the actual intelligence of the child, because not that the intelligence has come up, but because his proficiency with the language is better, so he is able to understand the test better. And if you look at the assessment, we do an assessment to find out the difficulty of the child. And the main criteria for the assessment is to find out what is the gap between a child's potential and the child's achievement. What is he capable of doing, but what is he able to do it? And why is he not able to do as per his potential? There will be always a gap between his chronological age and his performance age. That is because of the difficulties he is facing. So we try to find out that. Since we are not able to look at a child and find out the difficulties this child face, we call this as hidden disability. He is perfectly normal. He looks normal. He is bright. He is intelligent. He is an intelligent boy. He's a smart boy. He can act well. He can sing well. He can play. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Participants, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So learning disability, don't believe that it is a condition which can be cured, because it is not a disease. It is a condition with which we are born. Some of us are born with a natural talent to dance, to act, to sing, to play, or athletic. That is how we are. Some of us are extremely good in math. Some of us are extremely good with language. Some of us are extremely good with scientific facts. It comes spontaneously within us. So we all are talented. Even a child who is experiencing learning disability is a talented child. But we need to find out where exactly his talent is. If you look into the history of many of the celebrities which we have now in the field of cricket, in the field of Bollywood and Hollywood, there are so many people who are suffering from LD condition, but they have excelled in that particular part of their life where they could experience or they could identify where their potential is. So it is also to understand that it is a neurologically based processing problem. And this processing problem interferes with our learning skills. So if you look at the neurodevelopmental system of a child, there are 8 systems. And if there is any difficulty, any drawback, or any problem with any of the 8 systems in the neurodevelopmental system, it will definitely come in the way of learning. And usually the performance, how we assess a child, how does the child read it, how does the child write, how does the child perform, everything is evaluated based on what we get on the paper. So because of that, that is the final exhibit of the child's difficulties. So we are evaluating the child based on what we see in the paper. So, but we need to find out why is this happening in the paper. So these neurological issues interferes with the learning skills. It also interferes with the higher level skills such as organization, time planning, abstract concepts. Then all these areas are of much importance to learning. So it interferes with all these areas. So if that being an introduction, I'm just going to explain in detail to you what exactly is learning disability or learning difference. What are the types which are included in it? How can we categorize these difficulties and these differences? Okay, before I proceed to that, are you all with me? Are you all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So then let us see what is the how can we categorize learning disability? We categorize learning disability accordingly based on the kind of difficulties these children have. So we have 3 major categories. One is verbal learning disability. Second is non-verbal learning disability. And the third one is language disorder. We are so familiar with verbal disability because it shows the 3 R's: reading, writing, spelling, and mathematical calculations. So that is where everybody's attention is concentrated. That is where everybody is working on. But these 2 areas are of equal importance. And these 2 are the areas where all of us forget to understand the child or fail to understand the child. So let us now look into what exactly we mean by verbal learning disability. There are three conditions in verbal learning disability, means where language is used. And you find that all the three words have dis. Dis means difficulty. Dyslexia means difficulty with language. Dysgraphia means difficulty with writing. Dyscalculia means difficulty with numbers. Because all these are the three areas where we see words being used, language being used. So a child experiencing these are more or less visible to us from the paper or from the performance. So we teachers and psychologists, we find these things very easy to identify. Because the child is not able to read and write and spell, the child is not able to do maths. So, now, what is based by what is known as dyslexia? Difficulty with language, and it is a language-based disability. It affects our reading and related language. So when we say related reading, there are two kinds of reading. One is mechanical reading and the other one is reading with comprehension. So I have a student in a second standard level. His mechanical reading is at 5th standard exit, but he does not understand what he is reading. So looking at his ability of reading, parents are asking, why doesn't he write? If I give him a small passage to write, he cannot write because he does not have the vocabulary. Use words in a sensible manner, he cannot do that. But because he is good with these words and he is able to remember these words and his rote memory is extremely good, all his visual memory is extremely good, whatever he is reading, he is able to reproduce. In fact, he is drawing all these words for me in the paper. But if I ask him the meaning of the words, if I ask him to make a sentence on his own, he is not able to do that. This is where we get caught. Oh, he can read so beautifully. Then why can't he write? Why doesn't he answer my questions when I read the lesson? That is a totally different skill. Mechanical reading is one skill. Reading with understanding is one skill. Both are in you and me. But in these children, sometimes we don't find either of them, or sometimes we find only the mechanical reading. And even for children who are not able to read, they are not able to read fluently. They are not able to decode. What do you mean by this decoding? See, for example, when we are out in the road, we find so many signs. To cross the road, to stop, even the traffic light, if you take, it has got 3 colors. The colors are the codes. So we look at the color and say that, okay, it is red, it is green. And now we have to encode, we have to find the meaning which is associated with that color. Okay, red means stop, green means go. So like that, when I see symbols there, for example, if I take maths, I see that addition symbol. But I need to know what does it mean. So it is encoding, okay, this is a sign. Decoding is finding out the significance of that sign. I see letters A, B, C, D. But I need to know that this picture of A, it is a picture. with two slanting lines and a sleeping line in the middle. That is a picture. L letter, it's a picture of a standing line and a sleeping line. But what is the name of that picture? The name of the picture is A or L. And what is the function? There is a functional use for these letters. And that functional use of these letters come only if you know the sound of the alphabet. Letter A has 5 sounds. So if you really need to know, we need to know the 5 sounds. But for you and me, it came naturally, spontaneously. But for a child with a learning difference, especially learning in language, they do not understand that. Then they are not able to read. Put the letters together. These letters have sounds. And we are using the sounds to read. Cap, k, a, p. Mat, m, at, mat. So they have to put the sounds together to read the word. They have to read and then they have to comprehend it. Or mat is something on which I can sit. I can sleep. And every time I see the mat, I recall the use of it and the word. And the picture of M and A and T need to come to my mind. Then I should know how to write the letter M, letter A, and letter T. And I should also know that the spelling of it is mat. Sometimes we find these children not able to tell you the word correctly at the time when it is needed. Because our children are right-brained children. The difficulty is with the left hemisphere of the brain. And they see pictures rather than the symbols first. So if I say the word cat to a child, first he gets the picture of the cat in his mind. But for you and me, we get the picture of C and A and T. But for these children, that comes later. So this is the major difficulty these children have. There is a slight mistake in the headings that is given. I'm sorry. There are 2 pictures of the brain. One is the non-impaired brain, and the other one is the brain of a reader with dyslexia. We say that for a reader to read something, we need a 3-phase connection. That is how I would like to picture it or to explain it. You find 3 dots in a non-impaired reader. That is you and me. So what happens is that the front part is for the articulation of the letter or of the word. The second part is analyzing the word, where we are going to use the word, what is the functional use of the word. And the third one, the different uses of the word, the morphology of the word. For example, if you take the word sing, it is sing, sings, sang, singing. Each word has a use, but it all comes from the root word sing. And you should also know where we use, why we use it differently, and the significance of it. So for you and me, the 3-phase connection helps us. But if you take the reader with a disability, it is the only front part is active. He has a single-phase connection. That is how I would like to explain it to you so that you will be able to understand it better. So this single point is what has to do or take the function of all the 3 points. So reading becomes very, very painful and very, very difficult for the child. So we have seen the non-impaired brain, which we have while reading, and the impaired brain, which has the difficulty with learning. In other words, this is how it comes for the child. The right brain and the left brain. So when I say the word cat, that child with a learning difference sees the picture of the cat, whereas a person, a regular reader, can picture CAT very easily. So they see the visuals first rather than the symbols. So we can say that the difficulty of the children is in visualizing the symbols. I have to close my eyes and remember cat is cat. And K is actually the name, the sound of letter C. A is the sound of letter A. T is the sound of letter T. So that much happens in you and me. But for those children, he will be still playing with the picture of the cat in his brain. If this is the case, this is exactly what's happening when the child is reading. This is how their brain works. So imagine you scolding a child. Is it not a crime to scold a child it is not his fault that his brain functions like that. Many of us have seen children being hit for not reading, scolded, shouted at, read loudly, why can't you read it? How many times I read this lesson to you? Why don't you read it? Please, after attending this program, please make people understand that you cannot scold a child and get the result of reading fluently. It is not possible. We have to have an umpteen number of strategies to develop the reading in the child, to activate the centers of the brain, to develop reading with an effective result. That is very important. Now, you may ask me, how do we come across these? How do we find out this? I'll just give you from a superficial point of view. I'm not going, when I say superficial, what I mean is that within this time, I will not be able to go in depth much. So I'm just giving you a few tips. For any child to develop reading, for each and every human being to develop reading, we have some pre-reading skills. One is the ability to identify figures, and the next one is differentiate the figures. If I'm seeing a circle and a triangle, I should be able to know one circle, it is my dosa or my idli or my chapati. Triangle is something else where I find in my play box. The shape is different. Or my biscuit, my milk bikki is rectangular in shape, whereas my dosa is round in shape. So I see the difference. And I'm also able to say that this is round and this is something different. So a child to read, he must be able to identify right from the developmental stages before he enters the play school. He should have this ability to identify figures. I'm not talking about alphabet and numbers, but I'm talking about the things the child sees in the environment. So identify figures and see the difference between the figures. That is the most important thing for a child to learn, to identify letters and numbers once he comes to the school. So you may ask me, how do we find that the child has reading difficulty? Child cannot differentiate the sounds of letters. A, B, K, D. From A to Z, the sounds of letters. Then the child should be able to know how the letters look. What is the shape and size of letter A? If it is a capital, it has got two slanting lines with a sleeping line in the middle. If it is a small letter, it is a bounce with a small curved line. So he should know how these letters look. He should also know how to associate the letters with their sounds, the consonants and the vowels. The 5 vowels and the 21 consonants, he should know the letters, their size, the shape, the name, and the sounds. And he should be able to decode. Each time when he sees a letter, he should be able to tell you the name of the letter and the sound of the letter. These children may lack vocabulary because they don't have the right word, because they have difficulty with using language. So those are some of the things which we find in the primary classes. If you find that these children have these kind of difficulties, please keep your eyes and ears open. to find out if the child is experiencing difficulty. These are the tips for that. And as you go by years, as years advance, these are some of the problems which we find in children. They read word by word. For example, if it is a sentence like the cat sits on the mat, the child will read the cat sit on the mat. So by the time he reads the last word mat, he forgets what he read in the beginning. So word by word reading is not going to help the child because it is only identification of the word. It is not going to help him to understand what he is reading. If he is going to read the cat sat on the mat, if he can read like that, he can understand it better. Some of the children, they guess, they look at the letter and or the word and they just do a guess a word. For example, there is a word as carpet. I just look at it. Okay, carpet. I just looked. Okay, it is carpenter. You just look at it and make a guess. All these things, situations, you may find it as overlapping, but it is all different ways, the situations in which they use. Substitutions. They substitute a word. They just look at the shape of the word or the size of the word. So if, for example, there is a word as addition. So the word addition, he will just read it as attitude or something like that. He just substitutes it. He just looks at how the word looks like. Reversals are there. For example, how as was, saw as was, how as who, God as dog. Then reversals with letters B and D. Transpositions like W and M, they change it. N and U, they change it. So all these things are signs of reading. Understanding. They don't understand what I said in the beginning. The mechanical reading is there, but the reading with understanding is not there. Then many children, they omit words and lines while they're reading. Another major issue, which I don't know how many of us agree with, that English is not a language to spell and read, because in English, 50% of the words are phonetic and 50% of the words are non-phonetic. We have some words where the spelling has no connection with the word, with the pronunciation. So by allowing a child to spell that word, the child is not going to retain it because the child does not see any connection with the letters, the sounds, and the word. So spell reading is also not, cannot be appreciated in the classes, especially with children with these needs. So in simple words, then what does a child need to know? The child should have phonemic awareness, that the child should know the sounds of alphabet. The child should have enough words. He should know the meaning of the words. And he should know the syntax, as where to put the word correctly in a sentence. Morphology is the different usage of the words. For example, the word play, it's a plural word. Plays is a singular word. Playing is a present continuous word. Played is a past tense. So the child should be able to know what are these words and how these words have to be understood. Okay. Now, if dyslexia is there, then what is dysgraphia? Illegible handwriting, not able to read. We cannot make out what the child is reading. Inconsistent spacing. That means there is no space between letters and words. You find that all the letters are arranged, but there is no gap between. You cannot find out where the word starts. After the word, where is the space for the word? And even if they take a paper, they don't know where to start. Some of them start outside the margin, some of them start inside the margin, some of them write away from the margin. And if it is a 4-line book, we don't know where they're going to write. They may write on top of the first line. They don't know where exactly they should place their letters in a 4-line paper. So they are not able to plan. And if they have to write a sentence, each word they may write sometimes in different lines. And they also have difficulty in writing and thinking at the same time. I have to write the word carpenter. So that word has got 2 small words in it. There's a car and there's a pen and there's a T-E-R at the end. So when I'm writing, I have to really think. What do I have to think? How does letter C look? What is the sound of that letter? How does the letter form? On which line do I write? How does each sound come connected with one another? All these are the thinking process which happens in you and me in a split of a second. A fraction of a second, all these things happen in our brain. But for a child with learning problems and a child who is suffering from dysgraphia, he is not able to think. Sometimes he is not able to get the shape of the letter. I remember I have a student, suddenly she will come and ask me, Auntie, how does Q look? How does P look? She is in the 8th or 9th standard now. They forget the formation of the letter. They don't remember which letter, how the letter looks. So writing involves a lot of thinking which happens in you and me unknowingly. But for them, it is a laborious process. And if you look at dysgraphia, I can mention that there are 3 types of dysgraphia. One is motor dysgraphia, is the difficulty the children have in writing, in using the tripod grip, in using the 3 fingers, the thumb, the pointed finger and the middle finger. They have to hold it like this. And we know that in Tamil Nadu, the culture itself teaches us how to use the 3 fingers. All mothers teach their children. All the children watch the mothers drawing the column in front of their houses every day. And it is one of the most beautiful, dexterous activity of putting the column, the tripod grip. And how we teach the child to use the 3 fingers to take the bits of dosa or chapati, dip it in the gravy and eat it. So if these skills have to develop, we should allow the child to use their fingers properly right from their childhood. Second one is dyslexic dysgraphia, that is all the spelling problems. The third one is the spatial dysgraphia, where they don't have any sense of the space which they need to leave. They forget about the beginning of the sentence where capital has to be used. They don't know about punctuation. They don't know where to start, where to end, overlapping, words overlapping, letters overlapping, sentences overlapping. So all these becomes the problem. So there are 3 types of dysgraphia. The next one is dyscalculia, where a person has difficulty in understanding numbers. Because maths is an abstract concept. When we say 2, the picture of 2 comes to our mind, and we also know that there are 2 objects. But for a child who is suffering from dyscalculia, he does not understand that process within himself. Number 2 means, or number 6 means, how does it look? How does it form? And 6 means 6 things. So he should have the 6 objects in his mind. That is how learning of maths happens. That is how we teach the children with objects. Because maths is one subject where we have to use lot of manipulators, lot of things, lot of objects, building blocks, beads, everything comes handy for us to learn maths. And all the traditional games which we used to play, are of extremely great importance to learn maths facts. Understanding math symbols, memorizing the numbers, memorizing the tables are all difficult for these children. Many of the children are not able to tell the time, they're not able to count, they're not able to manage money. It is all because of the problem they have with numbers. So these are the verbal disabilities we have: dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. When it comes to non-verbal disability, actually there are 4 important factors which all of us are not aware of it. I started learning these things, giving more importance to these things once I started working. Once I started spending my time with these children only, I realized that these are their painful experiences. And nonverbal disability is highly deceptive. We are not able to find it out easily because all these children are extremely good in talking, extremely good in expressing their ideas. But they have difficulty in certain other areas which we think as carelessness. That is what happens. So when we say non-verbal disability, there is a discrepancy, there is a difference between their verbal skills, the way that they talk. When these children talk, we think that they're extremely smart, extremely intelligent. They can talk about a lot of things, yes. But they have certain other areas which are very weak. One is their motor control, their visual skills. They may not be seeing everything what they need to see. So I say that they look, but they don't see. They listen, but they don't hear. Because their ability to get capture those things are not there. So space is a problem for these children. Many times you and I see that when 2 of us are talking, sometimes we find children just barging across. And as a teacher, what will I do? Come here. We'll call the student and ask, don't you know manners? Aren't we standing and talking? And don't you know that you have to take the other way, not come in between us? But this child is not able to judge the space. You go to the classroom, they'll get crammed. They'll go and sit in between children. They will try to push others because they are not able to measure that space. And these children will have a lot of difficulty in social skills, in relating with others. So we think that these are all impertinent behaviors or a behavioral issue. It's a behavioral problem, but exactly it is not related with the behavioral issues. It is actually a non-verbal disability. So among this, in this category of non-verbal disability, we have got 4 factors. One is the one which I just explained. Then we have something called as dyspraxia. Then we have got a problem with executive functioning. And then we have visual motor deficit. So all these 4 comprise non-verbal disability. So dyspraxia is they have trouble with thinking. They have trouble with planning and carrying out sensory motor tasks. When we say that the 5 senses, that is why I said they look, but they don't see. They try to hear something. They listen, but they're not able to get what they really want. They are not visually impaired. They are not hearing impaired, but it is the processing which is difficult for them. They have difficulty in muscle control, which causes the movement, the coordination, the language and speech. The way they talk may not be right. They have difficulty in using the language appropriately. Coordination problems are all there. Motor planning, organizing oneself and the belongings is very difficult for these children, and we find them often very clumsy. Their bag will be in a mess, their dress will be messed up, Their hair will be messed up. They don't know where their things are. It is all because they are not able to plan and carry out their sensory motor tasks. But we always label these as behavioral issues or carelessness or disorganized. All these are the terms which we use these for children, but these children need to be looked into or addressed to. Just a minute. Sorry, just a minute. Excuse me, just a minute. I'm just not able to manage my screen. 1 second. Participants, please excuse me for a minute. Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Participants,
Yes,
can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry for the disturbance which happened. Okay, let's continue. So I just would like you to explain that there are different kinds of dyspraxia. One is called the oromotor dyspraxia. I remember coming across an incident where a boy was brought to a special educator saying that this boy has a habit of smiling at teachers when questions are asked. He is humiliating the teacher. He never answers the questions. So he was called by the special educator to find out what exactly it is. He is not able to use the jaws properly. The problem is with the movement of the jaws. So every time when a teacher asks a question, he is not able to immediately say that word because he has to manipulate his jaw properly to say that answer. So for a person who looks at him, he feels that he is just tightening his jaws, he is just tightening his teeth, and the facial expression will be so awkward. But it is not a sign of disrespect, or it is not a sign of smiling at the teacher or humiliating the teacher. It is the problem is with his jaw. He does not get to answer. So anytime when questions are asked to him, he knows that he has a difficulty. So because of the anxiety, he experiences that tightness of the jaws more. So he has to struggle, and many a times the struggle ends up as a failure. So oromotor dyspraxia is that the difficulty in using the jaws properly and talking. Then we have got something called as the fine motor dyspraxia, using the 3 fingers properly, holding it properly, using it properly. That is very, very difficult for him. Ideomotor dyspraxia is doing the simple tasks. For example, saying bye, or doing a singular activity like taking and putting something in a box, taking a pencil and putting it in a box. Simple motor activities. Ideational dyspraxia is one where the child is not able to do multi-level tasks. For example, if you do a sum, a maths, it has got a number of steps, and each step is connected to the other. When you learn an answer, it has got different steps connected with one another. He is not able to do that. It happens even in lot of activities. For example, combing the hair, brushing the teeth. It has got different levels or steps of activities. For example, if you have to brush your teeth, first you have to take the brush, put water on it, take the paste, open it, put the paste on the brush. Then you have to again put little water, then start brushing. So how many levels, how many steps are there for such a task? Combing the hair, again a difficult task. So these children with dyspraxia find to do all these things difficult. Arranging their bag is difficult. Organizing books as per the timetable is difficult. When the teacher asks them to get books and keep it, they find it very difficult to do that. Dressing dyspraxia, they don't know that they have to wear all the inners first, and then the pants, then the shirt, the belt, everything. They have difficulty in organizing their dressing skills. Then constructional dyspraxia, that means arranging things, arranging their table, arranging their day-to-day activities, arranging their lunch box, keeping the lunch bag ready. All these things are manipulating their environment to have an organized life is very difficult for these children. But all these things we will label as carelessness or behavioral issues. We even ask the children, why your mother didn't teach you all these things? It is not a question of nobody teaching them. It is a question of the difficulty the child has in him, and it is connected to their neurodevelopmental systems. Executive functioning is one where the neuropsychological process such as planning an activity, organizing an activity. For example, tomorrow I have 2 tests, I have 2 homeworks, I have to do a project. So as a student, as a regular student, when I come home, I'll just decide which one I should do first. Okay, first I will finish all my homework. Then I'll sit and study for my test, and then I will do the project work. So meanwhile, I'll ask my mom or my big brother to get me a few things so that I can do the project easily. This is planning, this is organizing. And I have got a lot of strategies to do that. I make a note of things, I write it, I put a tick on what I do and what I can't do. And I give proper attention to the instructions and to my doing. I'm able to remember every small detail. Which are the things to be, when I'm writing an answer, which are the words to be underlined, which are the words to be highlighted, which are the sentences to be given under bulletproof. So bullet points. So all those things, I'm very, very meticulous. I know how to manage my time. I have only 2 hours to study. I have only 3 hours to do all my homework. I have only this much of space to sit and do. All these things I'm able to do it. You are able to do it because we don't have the difficulty. But a child who is suffering from executive functioning, which are the skills which are necessary for executive functioning, are lacking in this child. This is also a learning disability. The next one or the last one is the visual perceptual or the visual motor deficit. That is understanding and processing the information we get from the environment. Okay, I have a plate. I have to go and have my food from a buffet table. So a child who has difficulty with visual perceptual skills or a visual motor deficit will not even see half the things on the table. He will be fumbling, where is the spoon, where is the plate, which one should I take first, which one should not I take, what to take, it's all difficult for him. So that is from a daily living skill. Now I have so many notebooks right in front of me. Now which one is my science note, which one is my physics, which my chemistry note, which is my maths note, where is my test note? Where is my project note? It's all a mess. I cannot find out my things at all and take things and put it in order. These children will have difficulty in finding out the differences between letters which are printed. He is losing his things and place very often because he forgets where he was sitting when he comes back to classroom after the recess. He cannot use the scissors properly. Of course, using scissor is also a fine motor issue, but because I do not know where exactly I have to cut. This is connected to the spatial issues, holding a pencil properly and having a proper eye-hand coordination. All these things are difficult for these children, and especially when you give them a lot of activities like find out the differences between two pictures, find the way from a maze. All these things are difficult for these children. These children may even lose their way because they are not able to perceive it properly. These are all a part of learning disability, which very few of us know that it is a difficulty and not a behavioral issue or not a problem with upbringing or the problem with the mother. The last one, as I said, in the categorization of learning differences of disability is language disorder. And these are called language processing disorder and auditory processing disorder. In language processing disorder, we have two things: expressing the language and receiving the language. So I should be able to understand what you are telling me. Receptive language. Every word that comes to me should go to my brain, and every word in your sentence should be processed within me. For example, here is a child, and I'm going to tell the child, you go upstairs, go to my room, open my cupboard, take my bag and come. Immediately he'll ask, what did you say? So we don't know which part of the instruction the child has got. He must have just got the bag. Or he must have only got that part, go upstairs. Or go to my room. But he is not able to connect all those things, and he is not understanding whatever we are giving him. I'm explaining the maths concept. I'm explaining the science concept. I'm explaining the story. I'm telling a story to him, but he is not receiving it properly because he is not able to process all what he hears in the brain. He does not understand the language. He does not know how to connect. So to understand something, we should have the sequential order in which our brain takes it, process it, and help us to comprehend it. So receptive language is difficult. Similarly, expressive language is also difficult for them because they don't know how to put the words correctly in the place and how to express, how to give an expression to their ideas. The right word at the right and the right way to give it, they do not know. So this is a language disorder, mainly with the process of receiving and expressing it. Another one is auditory processing disorder, that is auditory discrimination. All the sounds I hear from the environment, how do I discriminate the sounds? How do I discriminate the sounds of the bird, different kinds of bird, animals? So we know that for example, in the smaller class, in the LKG, we teach the children, the sounds animals make, the sounds bird makes. Even to a small baby, we start saying cat mews, okay, meow, or the bow bow. So we teach them these kind of things, which are very, very necessary. And in today's life, we don't have the time for most of the parents to spend time with these children. I come across children who tell me that my mother does not know how to tell a story, or I don't have a grandmother to tell me stories. So listening to stories, understanding the words, understanding the context, understanding the language, and what it means, the context in which a word is being used. It is all connected to the language disorder, which happens to a great extent due to lack of exposure. So auditory discrimination is again like that. I can tell you an example for this. I think years back, a student was brought to our center for evaluation. And so we were giving him a dictation to find out what his spelling skills are. So as we were giving the dictation, we understood that he is not able to write on the paper the exact word which we are giving him. For example, when we give him words like cat, mat, pat, he does not know that the first sound of all the three letters are different. Or we say that black, blue, he knows that there is a blur there, but he's not getting the final sounds. Sometimes he's not getting the middle sounds. So we find a lot of difficulty in him understanding the sounds we are giving him. He was not able to discriminate the sounds which he was listening. So we called the parent and asked them, why don't we just take him to an ENT to know where there is ear wax or whether there is any infection in the ear so that we can help him. Because he was confusing with every sound, similar sounds or the initial sounds. So then the father shared something from the family. He said, in my family, my two brothers cannot hear. They have hearing impairment. So what we do is, in our home, we always talk very loudly. So I don't know if my son got used to that thing or anyway, let us go and have a look with the ENT specialist. So when he went to the ENT specialist, they found that he has problem with his hearing. One ear has only 50% of hearing ability. The other ear has slowly started. There is also a deficit in hearing. So for this, he had to undergo surgery. And he was not a child because of learning difficulty. It is because of his auditory problem. And that we were able to find out when we gave him the test on auditory discrimination, he was not able to give. So when we come across children, a differential diagnosis is what is necessary. We need to have the professional background to understand whether it is really learning disability or any other factors which is causing this disability. He was studying in one of the reputed schools in Coimbatore in the 4th standard. Until then, he was not able to read and write properly, mainly because he was not able to hear things properly. And he was sent to us to the school saying that he is an LD child. But his difficulty is not because of LD, but because of a physical issue. So a lot of things we need to find out. He was able to now, he's having his own business. He completed his BCom and he's married and settled and he is having his own business in Coimbatore. And it's really, really amazing to see the way the young man is carrying on with his life. So these are some of the areas where we need to be very, very precise and need to be very shrewd in identifying what exactly the difficulty of the child is. I have to mention one or two associated conditions with it, which we have in the classroom, where we find many of the LD features in these conditions also. One is ADHD, which is characterized by hyperactivity, inattention, and impulsivity. ADHD, I can say that there are children who are physically very hyper, and they are not able to sit in a class, they are not able to listen, and they are mostly auditory children because they don't have the patience to sit and read and do the work, but they may be very good auditorily. So ADHD is something, it is again a neurological condition where we definitely need the help of a doctor and an occupational therapist as per the suggestion of the doctor to deal with this condition. It is always characterized by inattention because of their hyperactivity. There is another condition called as impulsivity, where the children thinking is much faster than their writing speed. So if they have something to write, for example, if I give them 2 question answers to write, when they're writing the first one itself, the second one is also going, the tape is going around on in their brain. So when they write, it will be a mixture of the first and the second question, and it does not make any sense to me, the teacher. Their thinking is much, much faster than their writing speed. Even when they talk, we find the words overlapping, and they are speaking so fast that we are not able to follow what they are doing. That is also a hyperactivity condition. And we find it is very difficult for these children to do their maths, their sums, because they forget their steps. They are too fast in calculations. They are too fast in doing things step by step. And so they manifest a lot of the difficulties which we expressed so far. ADD is a condition where the child is switched off. They are usually the teacher's pet because they don't create any issues. They are not having any problems in the class, but they will be in their own world. For example, if the teacher is going to teach them the story of Cinderella, and the teacher is going to explain the dress of Cinderella, and suddenly the teacher asks a question, have you been to Pothys or have you been to any other shops, the mall, to buy a beautiful dress like Cinderella's gown? Yes, ma'am, we went. And this child with ADD will stay back in that particular mall or in that shop where she sits and imagines the dresses she bought, the dresses she saw. And it takes a long time for her to come back. And for that, she needs the support of the teacher or a change in the environment. So these children often, they forget, they are getting switched off into their own world, and they're not available to us. So ADD is also a condition where we see many of the learning difficulty symptoms. And they also need to be considered as children with differences in their learning because of their conditions. We also find emotional and behavioral problems in the classroom. I'm just touching it. The oppositional defiant behavior, for everything that we say, the child will be opposing. And we call it as disobedience. We try to punish the child, and punishment only causes aggression. And the child refuses to comply with us. These are the issues where we definitely need the help of a psychologist, and if needed, a proper therapy for the child. Conduct disorder is again one where we find the child becomes very violent also. Not only defiance in their behavior, but they also become very violent in their behavior. We find these as when we move to this higher class, especially where we find children getting bullied, children getting teased, children getting humiliated by few children in the class. These are things to be noticed and things to be addressed in the proper professional manner. And this is not something which can be corrected just by punishment. And nowadays we get many children refusing to go to school, or school becomes a big burden for them because of these psychiatric conditions, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorders, eating disorders, and OCD conditions. So we find these children also in the school, in the classrooms. And many children are not comfortable, because I have in my center at least 4 children who are having school phobia. They don't have the confidence to be in a group. They're scared of the group, the higher group. And a lot of anxiety is there in them. Anxiety due to the group, the challenges in the group, and due to other reasons also. We have so many children who come from disturbed homes, separated families. All these children, because of their emotional disturbances, because of their psychiatric disorders, they also express different symptoms of the learning disability or the learning differences. And these children also need to be taught according to their level. go at the speed of the child, go at the pace of the child, respecting the problems of the child and the needs of the child. All these children need to be taught using a multi-sensory approach. All these children need to be taught with enough of visual input, enough of auditory input, enough of kinesthetic input, that is lot of activities and movements, and lot of tactile input where they feel and do this. And in our centers, we strictly follow this multi-sensory approach in preparing the lesson plans and also in teaching the children, and in the learning process also materials are given addressing these multi-sensory skills of the child so that they will be able to learn much effectively and easily, because we are addressing to their strengths. Because all these children are comfortable at least in one or two, and we use these skills in teaching and learning process. I also would like to mention one more condition. It is called as an ESL issue, or English as a second language. We find children who are quite intelligent, able to do maths, able to do physics sums, able to do the chemical equations and everything so properly, good in Tamil, but they are not doing well wherever the language has come. Even in maths, once the language comes in, we find that these children find it difficult. If in an English medium, once the English language comes into maths, they start fumbling with maths. Once physics theories are given, then they start fumbling. When the explanations are given in chemistry, they start fumbling. But all these other areas where they can use their intelligence, they are able to do it. So these children should not be labeled or categorized as children with dyslexia or difficulty with language. For them, the problem is only with the second language, English, where they need to be helped with proper remedial program to improve their English language, the functional use of English language. So I would like to say before this that you asked me what are the future prospects for these children. The inclusive education, if it comes effectively in all the campuses all over India, with the proper number of trained and qualified remedial teachers and supportive psychologists or counselors, we know that we will be able to help these children. Early intervention will be much, much easier and possible if an inclusive campus is there to identify these children right early and support them. But I don't know when that scenario is going to happen in India. We all say that it is an inclusive education school, but I don't know in effect how many qualified teachers are there, how many people are there to assess these children, identify these children, and bring them to focus with a proper remedial program. I do not know that. That is where we are struggling. And if the new national education policy is something where they are going to give a lot of importance to these children, I'm sure that these children will be helped right in the campus itself, with proper resource rooms, with proper backup programs. These children will be able to get proper help from the campus. But we are hopefully looking forward for that bright future in the field of our education so that we can help these children. And these children need not go to centers or special learning centers. They can very well enjoy in the campus itself. That should be the future of this field in the coming years. And I hope that you young people, psychologists and microbiologists, will be able to find a lot of answers through your research and through your learning to help these children to come up with a better future. Thank you very much. And I would like to end this with a statement. He who dares to be a teacher dares to grow. You and I can never come to a point and say that I know. If ever I think that I know everything about special education, that day is actually the day that I cease to grow. From then onwards, I will not be able to improve myself as a teacher or as a psychologist. This is a field that every day new learning happens, new researches happen, new strategies come forward. And if I'm ready to learn that and use it for the sake of other children and amongst my colleagues, I will be a better teacher. So never stop learning. Never think that you know everything, but we are all open to learning and be our students till we breathe our last. So thank you once again for the patient listening and for giving me this wonderful opportunity for sharing what I think is which you people need as per your syllabus and as per your needs. Hope I have done justice to the topic, and thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful discussion. You provided an in-depth detail on what should be learned related to the topic. Now the session is open for discussion. Participants, if you have any queries, you can openly discuss on mic with the guest speaker. You have one such an opportunity to discuss live with our speaker. You can even type it on the chat box. Should you have any queries?
Ma'am, how can we help the 20-year-old dyslexic girl?
First of all, if I have to look at a 20-year-old girl who has difficulty in language, first of all, we need to have an assessment to find out where exactly the girl's learning skills are. Can you hear me? Am
Yes.
I audible? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, this 20-year-old student needs a proper assessment either by a special educator or a clinical psychologist to find out where the child's learning levels are. Is it difficulty with reading that is preventing her? Or is it difficulty in understanding that which is preventing her? Or is it the spelling which is preventing her? And first of all, is it definitely dyslexia or is it an ESL condition? Because the girl didn't get enough exposure to English language, is that the reason why she is suffering from? So we have to first differentiate between these two factors and also the learning skills of the child. If we are able to find out that, we can still help her, giving her a support program and apply that support program into her current syllabus. Definitely, you will need the support of an expert, but if you are willing to help this girl, you can take some suggestions from the expert after the assessment and can definitely help the girl to come up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Ma'am, a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, suppose a child
Yeah.
of say 4 years old, a 4-year-old child.
Yeah.
That child does not acquire the finger dexterity that is, that should be for the children of that age.
Okay. Not able to
Suppose,
manipulate fingers. Can I just clarify?
Yes,
Is
not-
it the difficulty in manipulating the fingers?
No, the child is not getting a chance to do that.
Okay. Okay.
For such a child,
Hmm.
can we say for sure that that child will develop a learning disability in the future, or that this finger dexterity can be the proper finger dexterity can be acquired in later stage?
See, 4 years is the time that we expect the child to have proper tripod grip, eye-hand coordination, everything, and the proper manipulation of the fingers. We expect the child, because at 4 years, the child needs to go to a play school, or as per the present thing, the child goes to a LKG class. And he has to use his fingers for so many things. For example, if he has to open his bottle, he should know how to use his fingers. If he has to open his lunch box or snack box, he needs to know how to do that. And even to take a book or scribble, he needs to know how to use or manipulate his fingers properly. Okay. If, as it is mentioned, the child did not get a chance, I will call it as a lack of exposure or lack of proper training at the right time. So if it is lack of chance, then it is high time the child should be trained to do all these things. If you feel that the training is going to be difficult, we can definitely take the support of an occupational therapist to do the necessary, to give the child the necessary activities to develop the skills which the fingers need. I cannot say that because of this, the child must or should or will develop learning disability. But even after giving the training and even after giving the necessary exposure for development, if there is still the child is struggling or getting delayed, the child needs a proper assessment, which the therapist herself, the occupational therapist herself, can do and guide us in the beginning itself. In their assessment, they will tell you exactly, is it merely a case of lack of exposure or lack of chance, or is there any other difficulty the child has in manipulating their fingers? But it is not a criteria to develop learning disability.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
But the child definitely needs exposure and training. And it is better to be seen by an occupational therapist, because they will tell you exactly, is it, as you said, lack of chances or some difficulty with the manipulation of the fingers. And 4 years is right and early time to do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Hi,
Any more
ma'am.
questions?
Yes.
Does the child who's having pronunciation,
Yeah.
will it come under learning disability?
Pronunciation, why the child is not able to pronounce the words correctly, that has to be seen. Okay. If it is only connected with tongue tie or something where the child is not able to pronounce certain letters or certain words, that has to be addressed by an ENT specialist.
Okay, ma'am.
So first, we need that part of it cleared, that he is not able to utter some words or letters. For that, the ENT specialist should first give us the OK certificate. Then we can give the child some speech therapy or something, depending on the suggestions given by the ENT specialist. This is something to be seen by a medical professional.
Okay, ma'am.
And then much can be rectified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. One more question, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, do you think proper parenting has an effect? For example, what I just discussed earlier, what I asked earlier.
Yeah.
Do you think proper parenting?
Definitely. I can just give you an example for the question. I think just before the pandemic started, I once went to the mall in Coimbatore. So I happened to see a young mother, and she has twins. She just came to the mall at the food court. She placed her things, and two babies must be hardly 1+. They can hold things in their hand and play. So 1.5 years. So she actually, I'm using the words, dumped both the children onto the chairs. She sat, her husband has gone to order the food. She took 2 cell phones from her purse, and one she gave it to, and she gave one each to these children. One was playing listening to some Dora thing. The other one was watching the movements of the car. The mother is sitting and enjoying all the sights around. Is it right parenting? Are we not making our children disabled in a way? At this 1.5 years time, a child should be, if he goes to a mall, he should be eager to run around and see what is happening everywhere. He should be getting excited with the lights everywhere. He should be getting excited with the sounds, and he should be getting a look at all the food, varieties of food that is being kept there. And he should be actually fighting for the food there. But what are these 2 children doing? They're just dumped there with a gadget in their hand, and to top it all, a big family dosa comes, and the mother is feeding the children, not even knowing what the child is, and the child does not know what he or she is eating. How will auditory processing happen? How will language processing happen? How will your intelligence improve? How your comprehension can improve? How will you start talking? How will you get the proper use of language? Instead, if the mother could just carry these babies and show the different lights, show the different things which are exhibited all around, and talk to the child, that will be a totally different scenario. Now here the child is only going to look at these things, and the moment you take that gadget out, the child is going to throw tantrums, and that becomes a substitute for parenting. That becomes a substitute for a lot of other things, and we are actually causing a disability in that child. The child hardly gets the warmth of the mother. The child hardly gets the voice of the mother, doesn't listen to the mother. And if this is the case outside, how the children are treated at home. I can understand, okay, having twins is not an easy job. Bringing up even one child is a difficult thing. But is this going to help these children? Parenting has got a lot to do with. But then we won't say that, see, dyslexia itself is 2 types. Okay, one which is neurologically conditioned, the other one is based on the environment. So these environmental factors, if we are going to rectify that, we can definitely help these children to come up so fast. I have got so many children who have gone back to the regular mainstream after just 1 year of support to these children. When we do the assessment itself, we can understand that this is a question of lack of exposure, lack of training, lack of proper input which the parent gives. And 1 year of support, the child comes up beautifully. So parenting and the parental input has got a lot to do with this. Environmental factors, very, very important.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the participant side? Well, I hope those were the questions for today's session. If there are no further questions for today, I take this opportunity to formally conclude this webinar session, with a formal vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to convey my hearty thanks to today's guest speaker, Mrs. Elizabeth Suresh, Principal, Rashmika and Raksha Educational Trust, Coimbatore. Thank you, ma'am, for having accepted our invitation and coming over here to spend almost more than 1.5 hours to deliberate knowledge. I hope participants would have gathered snippets of your information and would try to apply, especially those from the psychology background, would apply on their day-to-day life. Next, I would like to thank management, CEO sir, Principal sir, for granting us permission to organize and convene this event. I'd like to thank both the Dean School of Research and the Dean of Science, Dr. S. N. Suresh, for their support. I'd like to thank my dear colleague, Dr. G. Sajit Kumar, Head Department of Psychology, for being here with me to organize this session. I also thank all the faculty members and the coordinator of this event for helping us from the Department of Psychology as well as from the Department of Microbiology for having helped us organize this event, and also thank all the student participants as well as the participants from outside colleges for having come join the session and gain the information. Thank you one and all for being here with us today. Let me post the feedback link on the chat box for you to fill. Shortly after filling the form, you will receive the certificate with your registered email ID. So please make sure that you provide the email IDs with correct spelling. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful opportunity. I once again thank the management, the principal and heads of the department, the faculty, the students, and all the people who made this day so beautiful. Thank you so much for everybody once again. Thank you.
Thank you. The feedback link has been posted. You can fill the feedback form.